Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense. I'm going to quote a great theologian, a great philosopher of life, a great all-around human being. You know him as Robbie. Right? Now you can quit laughing because I'm serious. I'm going to quote Robbie, right? Which Robbie just said, what? What did Robbie just say to me, Robbie?
I'm gonna lick your face.
No, that is not what you said, Robbie. What did you say to me?
Computers are for losers.
Thank you. See, I wanted you to hear Robbie's voice so you know I wasn't just making this up. Computers are for losers. Well, at Nightly Nonsense, we make some sense out of the nonsense. That probably sounds like a lot of nonsense to you, right? Computers are for losers, right? Who would ever think that way? Probably a very simplistic man who walks around licking people's foreheads would probably think that computers are for losers, right? Because he has no interest in those. Now, in fairness, Robbie uses computers all the time. He does most of his shows with a computer so he can print out what he's been doing, working on, right? That's not the point. The point is, lots of times we tend to consider whatever we're not interested in it's something for losers, right? Like I don't need that. I don't have to deal with that, right? Do you know that we can have that same concept? You can have that same concept with Christianity, with things in the Bible. Do you know that there are things in the Bible that just simply don't interest you? And we can start this concept of like, I don't have any interest in that, so why do I care? Right? Anybody who has an interest in that, well, they're just a loser, right? We think differently about them because once we classify somebody as a loser, really, what we're saying about this is you don't have a lot of value. You're doing life wrong, right? So if losing is somehow you didn't win, somehow you didn't get it right, somehow you don't know what you're talking about, somehow you messed up life, right? We look at things in Christianity, and sometimes we can look at people that way. Now, listen, I know nobody who's listening. Actually, it's always the other people, right? But none of you who are listening, nor me, is it that we think that way, but we do. Like, we think that way. Let me give you a case study on this whole thing, right? Very short, very sweet. Mark chapter 14 is one of the many places where we get a glimpse into the religiosity of the day. The people who are supposed to be the really smart people, the winners, not the losers. These are the people who used computers of their time, right? And it says this in verse 1. It was now 2 days before the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and the chief priest and the scribes, those are the really smart people, by the way, were seeking how to arrest him. Who? Jesus, right? By stealth and kill him. These are people who are plotting to get Jesus quickly, right? And to get him well. They're going to kill him. Right? For they said, not during the feast, lest there be an uproar from the people. So they're thinking about this. They have proclaimed that Jesus is a computer user. Jesus is a loser. Why? Because he's not talking like them, thinking like them, acting like them, being like them. And they have declared themselves self-righteous. So you want a check. Let's check here first. Have you declared yourself self-righteous? You're like, no, not me. No, wait, have you declared yourself right and everybody else wrong? Oh, that's self-righteousness, right? Self-righteousness is the idea of I've declared myself right, right? Righteousness is God declared that you are right. Self-righteousness is I declared myself to be right. Do you know what happens even if God declared you are right about something? How you do it, how you present it, how you talk about it? Those things all matter, right? So you can be righteous in a matter, right? And actually be having a hard time with it. Righteous is just the idea that I'm just trying to be Christ-like in this moment. You know you can be right in a moment and not righteous? That would be like my friend Robbie, who declared that anybody who uses a computer is a loser.
It's true.
He thinks it's true. He's declared himself right. You just heard it, right? He's declared himself right. And anybody who uses a computer is wrong. The funny part is, in about 35 seconds, I'm going to be filming with Robbie. He's going to be using a computer. So he is going to be on a one-way street to Loserville with me, right? He is as much a loser as I am. So I know that Robbie doesn't really think that. Some of us, though, we think that way. We think that anybody who thinks a certain way is a loser. That's what the Pharisees and the Sadducees thought here. They thought Jesus was a loser. They declared Jesus was a loser, and then they decided to act upon that declaration. Let's get rid of him. Let's get rid of him quickly. We got to be really careful because we just came off of a State of the Union address where we had a president. We got two totally different sides of the aisle. Then you got these people who are in the middle, right? Like, I don't really care who's president. Just benefit me. I just want to be able to do what I need to do, right? Half the people in this country said, totally wrong what the president's doing. Half the people say, oh, he's the greatest president ever, right? We have to be careful because when we declare ourselves right, then we act upon that. And then we develop a zero tolerance policy towards the people that we've declared are wrong. Just like here, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. I want you to think about this as I close. The Pharisees and Sadducees represented the God of the universe. That God, the real God, the right God, sent his one and only Son down for these people. These people who were self-righteous in nature looked at God's one and only Son and said, you're not the real Son of God. You're wrong. How could you be so off? How could you be so disconnected? You're serving the one and only real God and you don't recognize his Son. Think about that for a second, because you and I can be in the same place. You and I can be serving the one and only God, and we can be so off track that we don't recognize his Son in other people. We start looking at people, and we start self-righteousizing, which is a great word, right? I can't say it again, so I won't. We start declaring ourselves self-righteous, and we start acting upon that. So, make some sense out of the nonsense around you. Get rid of the self-righteousness. The Bible says there's nobody righteous, not one. There's nobody who's got it all together. There's nobody without sin. There's nobody who would be on God's Mount Rushmore of Christianity, right, for perfection. Nobody. Not a soul. So you don't have a right to be self-righteous. And the way you avoid being self-righteous is to know that you got problems, right? You might not be a loser because you like computers. You might be a loser for a million other reasons that God has declared, right? So drop the self-righteousness and worry about righteousness. That's where you need to be. Don't spend your time and energy trying to get people that you've declared are losers. Because you might just be going after the one and only Son of the living God. And that ought to scare you. Hey, we'll see you next time with my good friend Robbie here on Nightly Nonsense.